Hello, I'm Jesse Paul with the Paul Family Sugar Bush, and today we're making maple cream. And my purpose here is not to say one person's way is better than another's, but I'm going to tell you what works for us. I know that there's a Lapierre video out on making maple cream, and people who have followed that one have had a lot of trouble, and I've heard from several that have called us that burned up their machines doing it. So we're just going to tell you the way that we do it. All right, so let's get started. Cream is a great value-added product and a great way to improve your overall bottom line on making syrup. So we do this obviously in the off season. We use a double-bottomed pot here, and we'll put a couple of gallons in. And during this process, it seems like there is a lot of waste. So we want to make as much as we can in one day. So rather than just making one pot, if you can, make 2 pots and then freeze it, the cream when it's done. That's how we found the best way to optimize our product with the least amount of loss. Anyways, we need to get to 234 degrees, and we've just got there here within the last minute, and I'll show you what our process is next. I think it's important to have a good thermometer, a good way to tell temperature accurately. Okay, so make sure you get yourself a good thermometer. 234 is the temperature we want. A little safety tip, if you get the stuff stuck on you, you're going to the hospital. That's all to it. So take extra care when you're moving it. Also, while we're moving it, we want to make sure that we don't shake it. And I don't know all the science behind it, but you don't want to stir it, you don't want to shake it. You want to move it as smoothly as possible to an ice bath, and that's what we're going to do here now. I'm going to put this in our sink. We've got water in there already. And now we'll go ahead and cover it with tin foil. Now, I'm not a science guy. I don't know all the science behind it. I just know that it works better if we get this cooled down rapidly. That's what everybody else calls for. So that's why we obviously carefully add the ice in right away. Try to get this taffy to cool down as quick as possible. We strive for, and I think it should be all sugar makers' objective, is to make as smooth a cream as possible without the grittiness in it. And for us, part of that process is removing our tin foil or the lid on your pot and just giving it a couple of sprays of water to keep the crystals from forming on top of the top layer of the syrup there. You can see some of the crystallization already started to form. A little bit late on getting some water sprayed in there. So like we said earlier in the video, our purpose is not to bash anyone else's method or say that ours is better. It's just what works for us. I've heard people leaving their taffy in the refrigerator overnight and pulling it up the next day. We like the ice bath method. It's quick, relatively quick. In about 3 hours, our temperature should be down to around 60 degrees, and at that point, we'll start making we'll turn the taffy into maple cream using our Lapierre cream machine. So it's been about 3 hours. We've been cooling it, and it's down to about 62.5 degrees. And you can see how thick the taffy is now. Not just because we boiled the syrup longer, but also because of how cold it is. And we're going to go ahead and get our cream machine ready to go. We find that it gets hard real quick in there, so we like to make sure that we keep adding syrup as we go along. And to make this couple of gallons of taffy, we'll use probably a quart of syrup. For us, it's a two-man operation. You'll see why here. And this stuff is so thick, so if you don't use a little bit of syrup to lubricate it first, I've seen these people, and I've done it too. I've got that gear pump so jammed up that it'll lock up, and I've heard of people burning motors. That's good enough for now. There's something else that's very important, is something that we call seed cream. This is our maple cream from our last batch. Once again, I don't know all the science involved in it, but adding seed cream, what they call seed cream, helps future batches. So always try to have some seed cream. This is the whole cup we'll use of this. You can see the consistency as long as it's flowing right now, we're good. And we'll add slowly. We'll add the taffy slowly and add more regular maple syrup as we need it. If that's the consistency we like, I would not advise filling this up half to start with. I add a little bit as we go. It's easier to make changes to small batches than big batches. We're going to add a little more here. Keeping a close eye on the consistency of it, that we don't jam up the machine. Just things to keep in mind here when you're making this maple cream is that you keep the sides knocked down. Otherwise they'll get all bound up. So although the machine does the majority of the work, you've got to keep knocking the sides down so it blends properly. And as you can see here, the consistency is still good and don't have to add more syrup yet. I'm just finishing up this pot here. We started with 9 quarts of syrup. It boiled down to about 8 of taffy. You can see the mess and why I say to make a couple pots at once, so you minimize the waste. Once again, just knocking down the sides, and you can see it's about that much product in here, and that's over a couple gallons, just a little over a couple gallons of syrup that was reduced to taffy. And that's what we've got in here. Another important reason to keep the sides knocked down is the air seems to dry the cream kind of quickly up top. So you keep it knocked down, you're going to reduce the crystallization of the grittiness, the sandiness of the product. So, you know, just keep knocking it down. The harder you work it, the better product you're going to have. That's what we've found. And the cream's made, so we'll start filling our jars. Finishing up our second pot of taffy, and something that we didn't mention in the beginning of the video is what syrup to use. And I don't know all the science behind it. I know it has something to do with what they call invert and inert sugars, and it changes throughout the season, obviously. And we try to go with the first quarter, the first third of our syrup, definitely not past the halfway mark of the year, and we found the closer to the beginning of the season, the better our cream turns out. So keep that in mind when selecting the syrup to use for cream, is use it as early season as you can, unless you have a testing kit and you're some kind of a scientist and understand all that. We just take the easy way and use the early season syrup. So this is how we make our maple cream here at Paul Family Sugar Bush using our Lapierre half horsepower cream machine. If you like the video, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, the comments below. Visit our family's farm online at thesugarbushfamily.com or paulfamilysugarbush.net. Until later, thanks for watching.